Live streaming is on.
Hey, good morning and evening, wherever you come from or from around the world. We're excited to be here again for another World From Here. We've been at this for a little over a year, and every single week, I just can't wait for the next one. I'm joined by my colleagues here with Mr. Daniele Mincy, who's coming to us live from Italy. Good evening to you, Daniele.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Great pleasure being here.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about some exciting things and about what's in your wallet today. So we also have Mr. Tim Vasco, who's the chief architect and the founder and our leader of BlockSearch Blockchain. Good morning to you, Tim.
Hey, Daniele. Can't believe it's Friday morning live. Here we are again. It just seems like we were here just yesterday. What a week. What a week.
Deja vu. And then this morning we're going to continue talking about what we started last week, and that's valuations, and values. And with that, how does that really apply to the digital wallet? And a lot of people think of a digital wallet and wallets as cryptocurrency, but we're here to kind of eliminate that thought, because your wallet is really about life. It's about your business, it's about protection, your life, and it's about way more than just where you keep your crypto and where you are just transacting via a cryptocurrency. So,
well, Dan, it's interesting because I remember, and I mean, who hasn't done this? Is you're late running out of the door somewhere, and you're like, "Where's my wallet?"
Right.
Like, who hasn't done that, right? or you leave a restaurant or somewhere when you could go to restaurants, and you're out there and you're like, "Oh God, I think I forgot my wallet." What's the biggest panic moments in your life is your wallet, right?
Exactly.
And why? Just stop and analyze that for a minute. Why? Right?
Because it contains your whole life, right?
It's everything. It's you. It was that physical representation of everything that you could do in the world, who you are in the world, right? It's everything.
Right.
And so it's amazing to me that these wallets we have online are either, well, I can use a credit card. That's it. I can use a credit card. Okay, well, I can do that with PayPal too, and maybe more securely. And I can maybe hold my cryptocurrency, and that's about it.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah. But our physical pass wallet, when you go to the doctor, you have your health in there, and we're going to talk about that today. It really is your entire life and your livelihood and everything about you. And so that's what we want to talk about today. And before we start, I just want to tell everyone, if you haven't subscribed, please click on the subscribe button, and then also click on the thumbs up. We would like to have your thumbs up, and we continue to gain and followers, and we're thankful for those of you that join us. And and then at the end of this, we want you to stay all the way to the end, because we're going to invite you to something very special with this wallet. So, Tim, with that.
So kind of at the, getting to take off here about what we're talking about today, we start on, and today's a short one. We're just doing a recap of what we talked about. Sometimes we do these World From Here's, and what we try to do is every couple of weeks, we go in and say, well, what is the world from here? What does it actually look like? And then what's our part in it? What's BlockSearch's part in it? What's this team's part in it? And what's your part in it if you're a BlockSearch community member and token holder, a BCERT token holder? And what does it mean? We talk about cloud power to the people. We last week talked about valuation, and values. And it just seemed appropriate to tie that back into this thing that we call the wallet. So in the day, when we all used our wallets all the time, we would always run around and we'd say, oh, well, oh my God, I left my wallet somewhere. And today we do that with our mobile device. Like, think about if you just leave your mobile device laying somewhere, or you're freaked out, or how often you run out of the house, then run back in to grab your phone because you forgot about it, or you're in the car and you forgot that you don't have your phone. And we talked about this, and those three things are embedded in our life, whether we like it or not. Value, valuation, what we can do, what's our valuations in the world, how do we value something that we're going to buy, or something, what we have financially or what have you, and our values, what do we do with all that? And we talked last week, we ended last week with this, which is nowadays people know the price of everything and the value of nothing, which is what Oscar Wilde said when he was asked to define what is a cynic, right?
Right.
And so maybe it's time to get a little bit cynical about that idea that the cloud is something that should just be a value proposition for centralized companies. Because really, what can we do without it? Like, when I was in Cambridge, and I was spending time back in Massachusetts at MIT, I was at a lecture, and there was a term called the Digital Ghetto. And I had never heard that before, but the Digital Ghetto is this idea that we get all these students connected, but what if you have nothing to connect to or with, right? And so there's this idea of exclusionary software, exclusionary technology and connectivity that goes far beyond what we talk about most of the time here, which is cloud power to the people and seat fees and, disrupting SaaS and the Silicon Valley business models, like really disrupting that and getting this out there in a more distributed manner. So the idea of identity, a few years ago, I met with, I did a talk with the Intellectual Property Conference, International Intellectual Property Conference. And we talked about this idea of how can you own any intellectual property if you don't have an identity? And I'll never forget that that was at the exact time that those kids were trapped in that cave in Thailand. And when they finally rescued them, thank God, a few people lost their lives. The whole world came together, and they finally rescued these children. And they came out. They found out they didn't have an identity, and it becomes such an international news that Thailand brought these disenfranchised children in and gave them Thai citizenship. This is our wallet. This is our life. This is what it means when you have identity and to be in control. And that really is where we're headed. That really is the value that we see when we're talking about our life online. And the first value that we have to always be aware of is the value of security. So today, I'm going to go really quickly through this. I'm going to talk about the value of the valuation and the values that you just actually keep right in your wallet. Like it starts there. So this idea of things like a vault for you, passwords, or all this password clutter we have out there, which is 40-year-old technology. I mean, it's really outdated and archaic. And then we can now log in with Google and Facebook and LinkedIn, but we're all tracked. Like, as soon as we do that, we give permission, we're tracked. And what happens if that company gets hacked, and so forth and so on. So,
Tim, can I make a point about inclusion?
Please do.
Yeah, because probably all of us have heard, somehow the linkage between blockchain and inclusion. The fact that there are many people being unbanked, that have no identity, they have no ID, we want to get back into the system, blah, 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 blah. But what's the solution? So people talking about blockchain, meaning blockchain as a technology to include, but there's still a missing point. Because if you want to include these people and asking them an ID, name, last name, so first, last name, and date of birth, and an ID number, and perhaps we're reiterating the same solution that it didn't work so far
Right.
to include other people. So what we are telling here, and it's a very bold and strong message, is that as long as you hold the wallet, you are part of the system.
Right.
So you are included in the system, no matter where you're born, no matter how old are you, no matter whether you own 100 Bitcoin or you own nothing. So the fact that you have a connection and you can have a wallet with no restrictions whatsoever, then you are part of the system. That's something a couple of years ago. Probably all people talking about inclusion, but no one found or no one clearly explained how to include.
Exactly.
Well, and Daniela, to that point, I was just going to say there are over 1 billion people that don't have an identity in this world, and this is one way to provide an identity.
Well, identity is one piece of non-inclusion, and then you have the unbanked, which are people that have identity but don't have a bank account. Take, for example, El Salvador, because El Salvador, it's widely spoken this week because of Bitcoin. 70% into El Salvador, they don't have a bank account. 70% in a country.
And even think about that. They don't have a bank account. They don't have an identity. What do they have?
A
mobile
you have
device.
Poverty.
They have a mobile. They have a mobile device.
They have a mobile device. They exist as a person.
They exist as a person. They have an.
Yeah, they trade. Right. They do. Yeah, they work. They produce somehow something as part of a GDP contribution, and eventually they also pay taxes somehow in whatever form. So I think right now, thanks to technology, we are deploying solutions to improve the quality of life of people that today are not part of a system that we day by day measure.
That's right. So when we redefine value, like every time we redefine it, and thank you for jumping in and saying that, because we often are in our heads in coming from a perspective of what we think of value as, right? We think of security. We have things to be secure about. Well, if we can't solve it in our society where we do have access to these tools and things, and we can think about that, how can we solve bigger global inclusion problems, as Daniele points out? Right? So when we get there, we think about that idea of
Tim,
the value of security.
Before we move on, I also just want to point out about that password piece, because as you know, I talk a lot about that. We were talking yesterday. The average person has over 100 passwords, and like you said, you probably have thousands. So the value of one place to go get your passwords versus having them written down everywhere, and how much time does that take you, et cetera. It's just
and the idea of a password is kind of outdated anyway, right?
It is,
because algorithmically, one of our really helpful and bright partners shared with us that this is a chart, the time it takes to crack your password. And it's scary. It's scary when you look at that. Like it doesn't take very long to go in and crack a password. But when you get it back to Daniele's point about the blockchain, this kind of private public key model, this idea that there has been Bitcoin replicated, it hasn't been cracked in over a decade now. I mean, there is no fake Bitcoin. Think about that. That part's not been cracked. Now, applying that same logic to the idea of identity makes sense. It just makes absolute sense. And the reason that a Bitcoin doesn't get replicated, and the reason it can have this kind of idea of unique sovereignty of each coin is because of the algorithm that helps that coin be authenticated, right, Daniele? Created, authenticated through these proof of work things we talk about, through these algorithms that are big, big, big machines. And now it's so big to run one of those, we're even talking about green consumption of energy to try and do that. So no one entity can really go in and attack that Bitcoin network and really make those things. That's security. That's
Yeah,
really
and the narrative, I think this week since Miami conference, the narrative is shifting to a very interesting perspective. I think it was Michael Saylor who made this for the first time, and he said Google is spending 10% of their market cap. If we compare Apple with pears, but just to
right.
give a number, they spend 10% of their market cap, their turnover, to generate the billion of revenues and to get the market cap that Google has, which is, don't remember by heart, trillion something. So this means Google, when it comes down to energy capital efficiency, it's kind of 10%. So this means they spend about 130 billion in energy consumption to generate 1.3 trillion of revenues. Something like this. I'm just saying a number, right? 10%. If you think about Bitcoin, Bitcoin, to get to about a trillion right now is 700 billion market cap, is spending a fraction of it. So now the valuation of this very powerful network are starting to be measured according to what is the factor between what is the cost of energy to secure the network, with a kind of a multiplier, which is very interesting because it seems by looking at these metrics that Bitcoin, it's 1,000 times more capital and energy efficient than Google. So, and I think we're going to see more and more kind of new metrics of company valuation, because we're talking about the value of security, we're talking about valuation, that compare the cost of energy against the market cap to see how efficient that technology, that protocol, that platform is versus the consumption of energy. So, and I think that's a new metric that we're going to add on top of the traditional valuation mechanism like the P/E ratio and other stuff that we already tackled last time.
Exactly. And so, you know, when we start talking about this idea of value and we start talking about, okay, well, that's all well and good, but how do we do it? That's the code we've kind of cracked inside the wallet with ID certain and this ID status, where we actually identify various forms of identity. And what I'm going to do is just show you that in live in the live wallet. So let me open up that and show you what that means inside the BCERT Wallet. So when we do this, we have our wallet open. This is live. And I'm actually on my channel that we work on right here at The World From Here. And I go over here, and this is me. And I come down here, and this is brand new. You can see we're on the test net. And I come out here, and I can now walk through and do my identity verification. That's going to take me through a series of steps, and it's going to quickly identify me as to the first thing that's really important about this over here is I'm going to get my vault and what I showed you on the presentation, and I'm going to get my identity. And from that, I am going to get a an actual private public key pair that gives me the presentation of who I am, what I am, and it's going to give me privacy as I track back through that. So I am going to be biometrically identified. I'm going to have my private public key pair right out there through the secure virtual space technology. I'm going to be able to manage that identity, my ID certain and my track certain everywhere. And when I want somebody to be able to see me and see my identity, I will allow them to. And when I don't, if I don't want them tracking me, it's my choice. So this gives us a complete idea of from start to finish where we can take our identity verification, and getting back to what Daniele said, creating that valuation for these kind of open markets, the valuations of what will happen. What is going to happen when a company can no longer track me and use my data just because they want to, just because they happen to store it all, just because they happen to know it's me, just because they happen to know it's my habits. It's all my identity. I wrote about this in Forbes last year. I think in an April issue of Forbes, we'll post the link about what big data actually means in the world. So Dan, if we can remember, we'll post that link for everybody to go back and read that, which is this big box of data. And so to your point, Daniele, when you talk about valuation and changing valuation, we're going to talk about what that valuation means when we're dealing with things like our transactions in finance, our agreements. We talk a lot about signed agreements and things like that, even invoices, the receipts, and of course, the work that we do. This is all the valuation in our lives of transactions that relate back to exactly what NFTs and DeFi are talking about. Uniqueness, distribution, decentralization, and the valuation of all those transactions that come out of where?
Yeah, and people, you know, when
Your wallet.
Your wallet.
And just to, you know, to specify what do we mean for that. So the first application, the first protocol that pioneered the concept of NFT into the business transaction, it was Uniswap. Because, you know, people associate the NFT to artworks, to digital art, okay? Non-fungible token to a piece or masterpiece of art, digital art. But actually what we're telling here, it's we can create an NFT out of any business and transaction.
Right, exactly.
Which is something that people need to use to it, but we will educate what do we mean for that and how when can we create value by NFTing transactions and make them exchangeable and eventually non-fungible but valuable again into the business life cycle. I think it's
and
very,
we've got
very
some
important.
really exciting projects that we're working on right now. No spoiler alerts, but some very exciting projects that we're going to be releasing with NFTs that really boil down to this valuation of those kinds of transactions we choose to enter into. We choose it. And it should be our choice. And it should also be our privacy. And if they're very valuable, as you say, Daniele, you sure want to make sure they're authenticated and secured.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I'm having fun with my liquidity positions on Uniswap because I have an NFT with some. I have the token ID of both tokens where I'm providing liquidity. It's a long address, as we can see in our wallet address, and these addresses moving in a nice graphical animation. So we can do the same, meaning people can have their business transactions, which kind of animated into an NFT, and visually see what they're doing as part of their business life cycle.
And
Exactly.
Tim, this really becomes a gateway. It's a portal. It's not just one place to go for crypto, as I said up front, but it's a portal and a gateway to all kinds of different transactions and business as well as your life.
It becomes live. Then
Yes.
it's something that moves. In let's say in the SaaS environment, everything seems to be very static and subject to very rigid rule that someone else is defining. Now you're back in control and you decide how to play the game.
Right.
Exactly. And so going back to our live wallet, then I'm doing my transactions. I want to talk to people about it. I'm tracking all of that. I've got all of my transactions, and I can simply go in here and see what my transactions are. I can grab this hash and I can go verify it and quantify it right now. And I can actually see this hash on the chain. Let's go to a test network. We know we're on our test, so let's just go ahead and do test and put that in there. And there's my transaction. And it's completed. And I know it's authenticated. So what we just did is we went from our wallet and every transaction tracked. Think about that. And that can be your NFTs, that can be your receipts. It's immutable. It's proven. Now, let me take you out a few months from now. It's tax season. You don't need to go hunt for anything. Click of a button, boom, there's everything that applies. Think about that. That's a pretty cool wallet.
That's pretty.
That's pretty cool.
That is.
And
Well, and then, you know,
How many
there's a
hours
lot-
does that save you?
But there are a lot of
it's back to the
narratives.
value of time, right, Dan?
Your value time, absolutely.
Yeah, you know how many narratives there are surrounding regulation in blockchain, you know, in crypto, whatsoever. You know, here we come. Because at the end of the day, regulation is making sure IRS or whoever else get access to your records where you're supposed to pay taxes. So, and then, you know, as long as you have a wallet and you know how to play with, that's it. You don't have to play with Excel spreadsheet or you compare with other records altogether. Everything's there. Everything's available and you pay tax on top.
Exactly. So this is when we start talking about identity, inclusion, and things like that. What is going to reshape that idea of what we think valuations should be, how those transactions shape themselves in our economy, and how, as individuals, we're able to actually take advantage of this technology, this Web 3.0 technology, and really use it to our benefit without having to give up that idea of our own value, privacy, security, and the things that we value. And that kind of takes us to this next idea of values. And values being, well, what's important to us? You know, is authentication important to us? And I found this May 8th, 2020. It was bound to happen. California man arrested in suspected fake COVID vaccine card operation. Now, how sad is that? How sad is that? In a rich country that has plenty of vaccines, how sad is that? And look at where we're at in the world today. We've got all this technology out there. This goes back to your idea of a lot of people do this geeky stuff, but actually applying it, Daniele, like actually applying it. That's what we're about at BCERT. Actually applying it. I always say this. I'm a fundamentalist. This is utility. This is utility. Give it to people so they can use it. You know, it may be fascinating from a geek standpoint. It may be fascinating to build this. Give it to people who use it. This is what we get. How many people have gotten that? Yeah. Millions and millions of people. Dan, you got one? I got one in Canada. Did you get one? Daniele, did you get one?
Yeah, I get
one. Do you have
one.
A handwritten card?
I
do.
Handwritten card.
Yeah,
Paper and ink. It's 2021.
Yeah, and what did I do? You know, I took a picture of mine.
Took a picture. So it's in your, that's your digital wallet. That's as good as we can do. That's as good as we can do.
That's
there
mine.
That's
mine. You see mine?
I see it.
Yeah.
So how good is that? And so when we look at this and we think about it, we think, is this really what we want? Or do we want something like this? I know it's Tim. I know he's going to open up his little vaccine or VaxCertain. Yes, VaxCertain is coming. VaxCertain. And look, I'm traveling. I've got Matt and I scan it. We do this with security. We do it with our tickets on our phones, getting onto airplanes. In Australia now, you have to scan your QR code so they can get your name and address in case there is an outbreak before you go into a restaurant. We have all this technology, yet today, this is where we're at. And that's where the world's at. This is the world from here, and that's where BCERT is at, right there. Today, right now, today. That is live. We released this, and any document, and I'm talking about any of those transactional documents that you need to show, your certain IDs, your QR code, and your personal blockchain, just like I showed you, going back to the hash, your private public key pair, you are there. Now, that's a little bit more advanced. This might fit in my leather wallet, which I don't carry anymore because I've got my mobile phone. I've got my mobile device. Actually, I have multiple mobile devices. I have an Android and I've got an iOS mobile device. And I have my desktop computer, my laptop. I got the coolest little skinny, amazing EliteBook plug for HP. I love this machine. It's not an Apple. Sorry, Danielle, you were crashed last week.
That's fine. That's fine.
Had to take the shot. And it's got a touch screen too. I don't need an iPad to touch my screen and do stuff. It's got fingerprints all over it. It's awful. But anyway, that's where the world's from here is. And can we do that all in one place? The values we have of trust. Do we want to value and trust that the person sitting next to us when we open up events again has scanned this? Or do we want them to say, well, here's my card, right? How would you like to go home and get sick from an event that you went to go have a great time from, or worse, end up on a ventilator, or worse, end up like all this tragedy we've had in the world? There's a reason for this, right? There's a reason. There's rights that go along with that. It's the social contract.
It's a really weird time. Also, I live in Denver, and so they're lifting some restrictions. Some restaurants, you need a mask to go in, others you don't. Some places require you to have a mask and others don't. And it's just a really weird time we're going through right now all across the world. But you want to know that others have been vaccinated if you have been, and you want to protect yourself and your family, obviously. And there has to be a way to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when it all comes together, to wrap it up, because we're running out of time here, or slightly over, is all of that boils down to this ability to bring together everything you do. Like these meetings we run on the BlockCerts platform with our BlockCerts-based meeting software and technology that you control, our work certain, where you can go to work and you can feel like when you've walked through the door of the office, or you're working digitally, you know who you're working with, or you know they've been vaccinated, or you know that they're immune to COVID or what have you. So you've got your health. We call it health certain also. You're sign certain. So your signatures are all digitally authenticated, and you know that that transaction happened when and where it was supposed to, who did it, and who actually signed it. Your files, so you can share things privately, and it's not all in a centralized database somewhere out in the world that can either be shared by somebody else just by a link or hacked is easily. And then that vault that gives you complete control over all of that flowing in and out of your devices all over the world, all over the world. So that's the idea of integrated access management. And back to what Daniele said, integrated access management to what? To all of it. Because everything's in your wallet. You freak out if you lost your wallet. You freak out if you lose your phone. It's all there. It should really, really all be there. And now we have created that so that it actually is. And just so you're not just looking at a standard presentation deck, here you go. And I pop this open and I come over here, and my version doesn't have all the graphics in it, but there you go. And if I want to go anywhere and travel to any of my other team members or what have you, I just do that. And just as easily, now I'm into this wallet, and I now will populate up here with all of my I am certains, my private chats, my private videos, and everything, and I'm good to go. And instead of me working with Daniele and Dan right now over here, I'm over on my team. I'm going to go back to my partner's channel, and I'm just popping around the world. And guess what? Everybody knows it's me. And I'm in, I'm authenticated. And everything I do that I'm supposed to do gives me a tracking down here with my timestamp, date, and a complete 100% authentication. But that authentication isn't open to the world. It's open to me and only the people I work with in that block.
Yeah, who you choose to work with.
Who you choose to work with and who you choose to let see your information or share your information with.
Correct.
And if I don't want Dan to see my ID, he doesn't see it. If he says I have to see it, he knows it's certified. He knows it's not a fake ID. Sorry, fake ID kids. It's going to make it harder to get in the bars. But other than that, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Can I say something about valuation?
Please.
Because this is, we just emphasized how important the wallet is. The wallet is at the center of everything in a business or an ecosystem like ours. There is just one company. There are many companies providing wallet services, but just one company called BitGo. I don't know. Many of you have heard of it. It's one of the first wallet provider in the space. And BitGo has been sold to Galaxy Digital, the company by Mike Novogratz, at $1 billion. Okay, a company that just provide wallet service, multi-sig wallet, single sig wallet, has been valued $1 billion. So we provide a wallet as a tiny piece. It's not a tiny piece because there's a lot of development hours. But now we're just presenting a feature,
Sorry,
like an
team.
ads on. Yeah,
Sorry, team, you need to apologize to the team for that one.
So we're just presenting a piece, which is the key of our ecosystem, of a key value. But just to provide a comparable when it comes down to valuation, a company that was just providing wallet, not anything else, just a wallet service, has been valued $1 billion. Just food for thought.
And so
and that's the gateway, and then that gets you into the BCERT token that powers endless.
Yeah, because this company doesn't have any side-on application, doesn't have a powerful ecosystem, doesn't have a token, doesn't have anything that we built actually beside the wallet. And the wallet itself, which is a very powerful feature, has been valued $1 billion, which is pretty nice.
And so to that point, Daniele, this author who is
Marianna Mazzucato with one C is important. Otherwise, say Mazzucato. That is Mazzucato with one C only.
And now everybody understands why I did not say that. That's just beautiful. Has this book out, The Value of Everything, Who Makes and Who Takes from the Real Economy. And I love the cover, by the way, and I love the quote, modern economies reward activities that extract value that rather than create it. This must change to ensure a capitalism that works for us all. So think about that extract value rather than create it. When we start talking about value and valuation and values, we're talking about creating value. We're talking about creating it on a broader scale. And you can call it capitalism, socialism, communism. Those are all labels that we've put on this idea of economic value and economic valuation and economic values that belong under a social contract. So if I had to say what really is the value of everything, it's that social contract that we're now all inextricably linked through, both in the real world and in the digital world. In the digital world, when we're locked down, in the real world, when we're walking around, we have this connection and this massive gap. So we end by thinking about, and what I want to leave everybody to think about is we have this idea of the cloud now, we have this idea of connection, and we have this idea of here's technology that actually works today. What are we going to do with it? We've shown it to you. This week, Dan, you said there was a spoiler alert about what we're going to invite this upcoming week. If, and again, if on a limited basis, you want to be part of that solution, then Dan, tell them what's going to happen.
Yeah, so those token holders that have been a part of the community and those that join will receive an email from Tim tomorrow inviting you
Well,
to...
I don't know if it'll be tomorrow, but...
okay, an email from Tim inviting you to click on a link and get started with your wallet. And then we want to hear back from you. And we'll be testing just to make sure that there aren't any questions about that, access and all of that. And so we're ready to get started and ready to get going.
When that little red testnet thing is gone on my left-hand side and our guys say testnet is over, then of course we'll provide this, because we're about security. We're about this idea of making this easy too, right? Making the flows right. And there's a lot of moving parts to that. But the idea is this is our next version of a very functional platform we have already. And we're super excited to roll it out. You now have the value, the valuation, and your values in your pocket. You now have that in your pocket everywhere you go. And that is super exciting to me, to be able to start opening up through this technology, this Web 3.0, exactly what you can do in the world at your choice. It's your choice. And your choices do affect others, just like ours do here. Your choices as part of the BlockCerts community or not BlockCerts community always affect others. So with that, I just want to end with what I always do, because that's what it's about. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay digital. And we're super excited about next week. We got some really cool stuff, including the fact that invite only for right now wallet. We're here, we're out there. Sign up on BCERT.io. I think you'll be able to just go in there, click and register for an invite. And as you go, you'll be able to join this community of some really powerful stuff happening in Web 3.0.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Really appreciate it. Daniele, have a nice evening there in Italy.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I'll have, for sure.
Time for a glass of red.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike is ready. Yeah.
Have a great weekend.